You know the drill, right? If you've spent any time on an American job site, picture this. It's 5:30 a.m., the coffee's still way too hot to drink, that familiar smell of diesel is hanging in the crisp morning air, and the machines, well, they're just starting to warm up. Today in our explainer, we're diving into an absolute staple of that environment. We're talking about the Caterpillar 420 center pivot backhoe loader. Now, if you're an operator, a contractor, or honestly, just someone who respects heavy iron, you already know this machine. It's the workhorse, the Swiss Army knife of the dirt. But listen, today, we're not just gonna sit here and read some glossy marketing brochure. No way! We're putting the official spec sheet head to head with the gritty, grease under your nails reality of the job site.
But hey, before we get to the shiny numbers, let me ask you this. What happens when the industry standard backhoe, the literal machine you rely on to pay the bills, just simply refuses to rev under load? Yeah, it's the exact kind of real-world mechanical mystery that plagues even the most reliable heavy machinery. I mean, it can turn a profitable week into an absolute nightmare real quick. Keep that question in the back of your mind, all right? Because a little later in this explainer, we're actually going to solve a real-life mechanical puzzle straight from the garage.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, meet the Cat 420, the foundation.
So, right out of the gate, the maximum gross power for the Cat 420 series sits somewhere between 102 and 112 horsepower. Now, that kind of power in a backhoe loader, that means serious pushing and lifting capability. You know, it's not just about speed here, it's about torque. It's about having the sheer force under the hood to just bust right through compacted soil, rock, and heavy clay without even breaking a sweat.
Moving down the spec sheet, we hit the standard dig depth, which is 14 feet. For those of you out there laying pipe, digging foundations, or doing standard utility work, you know 14 feet is the absolute sweet spot. It gives you the exact reach you need for municipal and residential jobs, but, and this is key, without the massive footprint of a dedicated excavator. Basically, it's practical, authoritative reach.
Next up, we're looking at a maximum operating weight of 24,251 pounds. Let that sink in for a second. That is over 12 tons of steel, hydraulics, and pure engineering. When you drop the stabilizers on a machine with this kind of mass, it plants itself, literally. It commands respect on the dirt, making sure that when you're pulling a heavy load with that backhoe, the whole machine stays exactly where you parked it. No drifting around.
So what does this all mean? The crucial point here is versatility. Caterpillar officially pitches the 420 to contractors as the ultimate multi-tool. You've got digging, excavating, trenching, and thanks to a massive ecosystem of backhoe attachments, you can swap out a bucket for a hammer, an auger, or a compactor in just minutes. It's specifically designed so that one single operator can literally do the job of 3 different single-purpose machines. Talk about efficiency.
Moving right along to section 2. The highs, specifically focusing on smooth operation.
Caterpillar proudly claims that this machine sets the industry standard for operator comfort and heavy lifting capability. And look, let's be real here. If you're over 45, like a lot of us, your lower back has probably felt every single bump and jolt of those older, stiffer machines. Am I right? When you're putting in a 10 or 12-hour shift, cab comfort absolutely isn't a luxury anymore. It's a necessity. We're talking air suspension seats, ergonomic joystick controls, and solid climate control. It means an operator actually stays alert, safe, and productive from the very first scoop of the morning right down to the last trench of the evening.
And you know, looking at the heavy equipment community consensus, the operators completely agree. The 420 series is widely praised for being incredibly user-friendly. It's perfect for both beginners and pros. The hydraulics are known for their incredibly smooth operation, which allows seasoned pros to be downright surgical with their movements. But at the same time, it's intuitive enough for beginners to master, especially since there are so many easy tips and tricks available out there to get the hang of it. High efficiency across the board. Bottom line, it makes you look good on the job site. But it's not all sunshine and perfectly dug trenches. Let's look at section 3, the lows, or as I like to call them, maintenance quirks. Here we have a pretty stark contrast. You see the official stance on the left, promising exceptional performance every single time you turn the key. But over on the right, in the real world, mechanics and owners have faced a very specific, incredibly frustrating reality. I'm talking about machines that simply refuse to rev up when they're actually put under a load. Our sources highlighted an incredibly frustrating scenario sourced directly from actual mechanics. Okay, imagine this. You've got a 2006 420e. It has the turbocharged 4.4 Perkins engine, but the machine won't rev normally from the pedal.
Based on the mechanical logs we reviewed, here's what happens next. The engine gets fully rebuilt. Then, the hydraulic pump is completely disassembled and gets all new seals. The fuel pump is repaired and timed perfectly. The entire fuel system is checked from top to bottom. Everything is absolutely pristine. Thousands of dollars are spent, and guess what? The machine still chokes under load. It just won't rev. At this point, your budget is completely blown, and it is just an absolute mind-numbing headache. Well, when the official manuals fail, the community steps in. According to the forums, one veteran mechanic pointed out a tiny, easily missed detail. He said, and I quote, "Be careful of the fuel shutoff solenoid. The Perkins and Cat ones have slightly different plunger links." Whoa! It turns out the Perkins and Cat solenoids look practically identical to the naked eye, but they have these very slightly different plunger links. If you put the wrong one in, or if the cold start solenoid starts acting up, the engine simply isn't getting the fuel it needs when that heavy load hits. Man, this is exactly the kind of hard-earned, grease-under-the-fingernails knowledge you are literally never going to find on a standard spec sheet.
So here is a quick, real-world troubleshooting masterclass on how to actually isolate this issue. Step 1, you hook up a gauge to the transmission oil pump. You're looking for a target of about 230 psi. Now, if that looks good, step 2 is you isolate the engine by literally unbolting the torque converter right from the flywheel. Step 3, you test the revving with the engine disconnected. If it revs perfectly fine when it's physically disconnected from the transmission, you instantly know your problem isn't the engine itself, it's a loaded hydraulic pump or maybe a parasitic draw somewhere in the drivetrain. And finally, step 4, you thoroughly inspect those tiny, easily overlooked cold start solenoids. Now that is some real mechanical detective work right there. All right, let's bring it all home with section 4, the final verdict. Because we absolutely have to talk about the price of admission. The starting MSRP for a brand new base model Cat 420 is sitting at $126,091 US. Yep. And keep in mind, that is before you start adding on specialized attachments, extended protection plans, or dealing with those hefty delivery fees. It is a massive, massive financial investment for any contractor or business owner. So what does this all boil down to? Does the undeniable industry-leading comfort and capability, that massive 112 horsepower pushing force, the smooth, precise hydraulics, does all of that actually outweigh a $126,000 price tag and those potential incredibly frustrating maintenance quirks? Well, for a whole lot of American contractors out there, the answer is still a resounding yes. Because when that 420 is running right, it moves the earth like absolutely nothing else. But what do you think? Are you willing to take on the grease in the gears for that level of Caterpillar capability? Think about that the next time you hear one firing up at dawn. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep your boots muddy out there, and I will see you on the next one.